Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Rebecca Olson, and I'm the Executive Director of the OABC. On behalf of the Board of Directors, we want to thank each of our members here today for staying active and joining us for these online events. And as a note, we are recording today's session for those who were unable to make it today. So I need to tell you that before moving on. I'd also like to thank today's speaker, Mr. Mohammed Al Tamami, who is also one of our newest members of the OABC. He's waving. Hello. We do want to say thank you for preparing such an engaging session, taking the time to address us all today. I was just telling him we've really been looking forward to this as the OABC, actually for a few months now, and we're looking forward to hearing from you about how to strategically use LinkedIn and all the tools it offers to us as business people. So today, I was looking over the guest list, and I noticed there are a number of people attending their first ever OABC event today. So welcome, and I thought I'd just share for a minute or two about the OABC, who we are, and what we do before we all get started. Okay, so the OABC is a 17-year-old organization based here in Oman. We're on a mission to help foster increased trade and commercial development between the US and the Sultanate. So we're the official affiliate of the US Chamber of Commerce in Oman. This is the largest business federation in the world. The US Chamber represents over 3 million businesses. So most nations have an American chamber or an AmCham, and the OABC is the only one in Oman. In addition to our goal of facilitating commercial development between Oman and the US, much of our time is spent focused on helping Omani businesses and international businesses meet each other, network, and do better business here in the country. So the network is not just for Americans or for Omanis, but for anyone looking to stay connected here in the business community like all of you are doing today. So we promote member companies, we promote their products and services, we host over 30 events a year, and even during COVID-19, our team has been facilitating introductions over email between members, hosting these online meetings. Not the same, but what we're working on now. We make sure that all the member executives are able to stay in the know about the new legislation coming out, new companies in the marketplace, new opportunities, and other important business information. We also work very closely with the US Embassy Muscat and enjoy collaboration on events and initiatives together. So there's currently around 170 companies within the OABC network, and they are in 3 levels. We have SME, corporate, and premium members. And if anyone on the call would like to speak with me about membership, my door is always open, although right now this is my home office, so you can just email the address that sent you all the information for today's meeting. All right, we're gonna keep things moving so we can get to Mr. Al Tamami's speech sooner. This next slide with our premium member logos usually goes up at all of our in-person events. So if we were at the Grand Hyatt or the Intercon, you would see these on the screen. We give visibility and special appreciation, and this is really it's still very important to do, even though we're meeting digitally. So thank you to each of these companies for being committed premium members of the OABC. We're really grateful for the participation of every one of the 170 member companies. But we have to say a special thank you here because these are like our annual sponsors. They support the work at the highest level possible. And finally, I'd like to give a special thank you to the OABC corporate member Novotel Muscat Airport Hotel, which was previously the Sundays Rotana. They've hosted our presenter today, and they're sponsoring a meeting room for the purposes of this session. And I'd also like to say congratulations while we're at it to the GM, David Fall, and the team. We saw that Teatro Restaurant once again won the World Luxury Restaurant Award for the 2nd year running here in Oman. So many congratulations to your team, and thank you again, Novotel, for the support. And now, without further ado, I'll just share a bit more information about our presenter before handing over the rest of today's presentation to our LinkedIn expert. Mohammed Al Tamami is a media planning and strategy graduate who spent 10+ years of his career working on global consulting and advisory assignments on innovation, technology, and strategy. His notable accomplishments include awards from the Malaysian Design and Innovation Center and a feature in Those Who Inspire Oman, particularly for his role as a digital strategist in the re-election campaign of a former head of state. Mr. Tamami is the co-founder and chief Strategy Officer of a young and upcoming financial technology startup that provides AI-driven capabilities for the financial services industry. Mr. Tamami has also kindly offered, this is big everybody, one-on-one consultation sessions for everyone in the membership. And to non-members who've attended the session today, these are every Friday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So if you don't get enough today, you can follow up with him personally on Fridays. So once again, thank you for your willingness to address us and share some insightful LinkedIn hacks that we all need. We are all looking forward to what you have to say, and the floor is yours.
Rebecca, thank you for that lovely introduction. I appreciate that. And a lot of thanks to the OABC for doing this. I'm gonna share my screen now and offer you guys a little bit of a story as to why I do this and why I feel LinkedIn is so important for us to sort of be able to synthesize and understand and navigate. Now, there we go. I appreciate everybody's patience, and I hope everybody's doing well this morning, this afternoon, and you're all keeping safe, yeah? It feels great to connect with everyone and not necessarily wearing a mask, although over Zoom. So I want to tell you guys about why I like to speak about LinkedIn. It's a bit of a personal story. I'm a millennial, right? I've been using the internet since the mid-90s. I've used everything under the sun since the mid-90s. And a couple of years ago, although I am a digital strategist and a bit of an expert on technicalities related to social media, but like everyone, like all normal people, I was also kind of really bad at applying it to myself. So around 4 years ago, I really got thinking, how can I do better? And that's when I realized I was really exhausted. I was tired. I was using Facebook. I was using LinkedIn. I was using Orkut. I mean, I was using all the social platforms that most of us use. And I realized if I was to succeed at any given platform that is practical to my lifestyle, which we all have to admit, work is like 90% of our lifestyle, or at least 50% of it. I realized, why am I wasting my precious time on Facebook, on Instagram, and other platforms? And I shifted my focus to LinkedIn. At that point, LinkedIn was going and it was growing. And it was this eureka moment for me of being able to sort of focus on a particular platform that really made a difference in my productivity, my ability to sort of stay in touch with friends, colleagues, associates, and all of the above. But when you start applying yourself towards a particular social media platform, case in point LinkedIn, over time, you will encounter these little eureka moments, these moments that start telling you that, oh, hold on a minute, this works. This does deliver a return on investment. And I think for the last 4 years, there's been at least a couple of occasions a year where I actually experienced that, where someone would have discovered me and would give me a call or message me, I'd like to hire you, or a potential employer or a client. Actually, something really special happened in the last 24 hours, and it's thanks to this event. I connected, because of the coverage on social media, I connected with an old friend from my teenage days, someone I haven't seen in 20 years. And it's someone, whenever I think of, I actually smile and laugh. He was a great person. His name is Nader. And because of all this LinkedIn activity of late for this event, he discovered me and reached out. And I was so ecstatic. It's the best thing that happened to me this week. So sometimes it's not just about work and the business and all of that. Now, I want you guys to really think about it. Most of us at at our workspace, we always talk about how to improve our email campaigns. Sometimes, your boss will come and go like, yo, I really think you should really design your email this way so that you could be more effective and solicit better response. Of course, response is very important to a lot of people who are actively in sales or marketing, whether they're CEOs or entrepreneurs or sales executives for that matter. I think of LinkedIn today as the new email, and that's slowly going to become even more apparent. Email is not great for communicating what makes each single one of you unique from a personality perspective. And most of the time, people do business with a person and not necessarily just the organization or the brand. So LinkedIn really facilitates that aspect. And I think with this image that I'm sharing, what I'm just trying to say is take the plunge, give it a try, allow time to deliver results. Time is always underestimated as a resource. We always think of resources in terms of money and people, but allowing time to happen really begins to pay off in terms of applying yourself in a given platform. But also, I'm really scared of heights, and I don't jump into the water like this guy does. I just can't. Heights is just not my thing. But if anything, making that plunge into using LinkedIn aggressively, or at least for an hour a day, really gets you out there. And I've come to learn from a lot of conversations is that a lot of us really struggle with this particular aspect of our LinkedIn presence. And I think this is applicable across other social media sites too, be it Facebook or Instagram, especially when you're trying to position your personal brand, your individuality. And in a lot of conversations I have on Fridays with friends who are trying to improve their social media presence or their LinkedIn presence, it's this bit here, the about, the summary. This is where everybody kind of gets stuck most of the time, because it's really hard to kind of talk about who you are and what you are and articulate that. Actually, it's really difficult. I've probably changed the text in the about section in my profile maybe 50 times over the last couple of years. Because what I want a lot of us to realize, who you are is an evolving concept. So if you're an entrepreneur this week and next week you're something else, that's okay. Everybody's an evolving idea, and you can always go back and edit and change and improve and reiterate it. So I think a lot of us just really need to be more comfortable about ourselves and get over this psychological paralysis of articulating who we are, and avoid perfectionism. Perfectionism really is what stops us at our tracks all the time. And I think perfectionism is even worse than procrastination. So I want to talk about the about section for a minute. You'll notice that mine is short, simple, and sweet. At least I think so. But I wanted it to be short. And then I started to think, how can I, to my best of abilities, communicate a lot of my personality and who I am through the about? So when you look at the first paragraph, it describes me as a serial entrepreneur. It gives you a little bit of my education. It also adds that I was homeschooled by a socio-political scientist. This is very important for me because Dad was my ultimate school, I'm a high school dropout, by the way, guys. So this was the real university I went to. And then I go in to talk about my affiliations and clients that I've worked with to express how I appreciate all these different, shall we call them characters that contributed to my development as an individual or as a consultant or as an executive. So for me to nail down these 3 paragraphs is around 50 iterations over the last couple of years. And that's okay. You can always revisit this and change it. But come up with something. You're unique, your experience, you've worked, you've seen a lot. Express that. And LinkedIn is not sort of like email where, you know, we type out our emails. Dear Mr. David, you know, no, it's a bit more casual. LinkedIn is more casual, but it's still work. I want to move your attention to one of my favorite hacks, and I'm going to show you how this kind of translates to you. When you look at my name here, and of course, naturally, you need to furnish your banner. I notice a lot of people on LinkedIn don't put an image of themselves. That's extremely dangerous because a lot of people will suspect that this is a fake account. People want to know that they're connecting with a real person. I recently changed my picture from a frowning one to a smiling one because I realize it's just better. But you know, to each his own. Whatever your vibe is, express it. Even if it's a frowning picture, it's okay. The internet is extremely forgiving, and the internet has a goldfish memory. So you will notice underneath my name, I don't write CEO, entrepreneur. I don't even write I help leaders do bing, bang, boom. You know, I don't do that. I don't do that because a lot of people do that. And I want my headline to really stick out. So I figured, yes, digital transformation, it's what I do with organizations. But then I added the hitman just to give that slight edge, you know, and it really attracts eyeballs. I think when I added hitman, really a lot of requests to connect have increased. People get really curious and intrigued. So this simple addition of the hitman and the emoji made a huge difference for my presence. And I've done this change around 1.5 years ago, almost now, and has really worked well. So I encourage you to really look at your headline from a marketeer's lens. Everybody on LinkedIn is a GM. Everybody in LinkedIn is a CEO. So like, geez, give us a break. We know you're a CEO, you know, but what are you about is what I think most people are really interested in. I want to shift your attention to people also viewed. Now, this is actually extremely important to recognize. LinkedIn as an algorithm, like all social media platforms, provides you analytics directly and indirectly. And people also viewed is one of the indirect analytical tools that you should really pay attention to. Because depending on how you build up your profile, they start matching you with people they feel have an affinity to your profile. But it also tells you, when people view you, who do they go and view next? So this is a great tool to sort of adjust your profile and sort of gauge where you fit in the bracket of other profiles as a measure to compare. I'm going to shift your attention, guys, to what happened there? Right. Featured, right? So, you know, you have the featured section in your LinkedIn profile. This is where you get to highlight your favorite content, major achievements, maybe a certificate or two. So I always feature my most attractive pieces of content I like. Obviously, this banner. Obviously, this picture with His Majesty from a few years ago, because, you know, anything with His Majesty just sells as content, you know, and got to keep that in mind. High impact imagery like that always works. It's just how we are designed as an audience. And this is very specific to Oman. So it's important to really note that I use it with intent, knowing that content is consumed in such a way in Oman. And I really want to emphasize the about us, guys. Just don't overthink it. Just do it and you'll be okay. I'm still in the profile section. Now, I've skipped a lot of what's in between, you know, the endorsements. Those don't make sense. LinkedIn should just discontinue this endorsement aspect. But like all content platforms, recommendations is extremely important. As soon as someone lands on your profile, they really get to feel who you are and what you've done and how people appreciate you and how you appreciate others. So I want to show that as much as I've received 12 recommendations, I've also given up to 10 recommendations. And this is how recommendations work. You can't be always on the taking side. You should be giving out recommendations for legitimate purposes and to legitimate people you appreciate. And as you give it, you also happen to receive it. I notice quite often a lot of people soliciting for recommendations without a follow-up offer on, yeah, we worked together. I'd really like your recommendation. I'll be happy to write you one. I'll be happy to write you one rarely shows up in conversations. And I think this is sort of something to think about. Give recommendations and you shall receive too. Now, there's this idea. What is the value of social media, or the entire economics of it all, right? And this is a little diagram I came up with some time ago, but I'll take you through it because it's so important for us to understand that this is a new form of currency. And attention is often always shifted towards the content itself. Whilst when you add time and space, it's that space, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook, where the content lives and where people engage and conversate with each other. And this has a numerical monetary value. So today, attention trading is an actual term. People are constantly trading attention on the internet. And that arbitrage is actually used as currency for a lot of influencers that you know and probably follow. Because every time you spend 5 seconds in a newsfeed looking at a picture or a video on how to make cupcakes or a PDF that talks about a certain topic, you're investing your valuable time towards that piece of content and therefore that brand. And in the internet, when you scale that, that's thousands and thousands and thousands of hours produced by the number of followers and people who are actually engaging with your content. Yeah, it is time is money in the literal sense. And recently I added the space because I feel it's not just about time. If we looked at time as a linear concept, then it's one way, but rather think of time as being a lateral idea that goes in all directions. So you could publish some great content today and it is still receiving attention and likes 3 years from now. So it's not really tied to time from the linear idea. I still have posts that still receive readerships up to today. And some of these posts are, heck, 5 years old, whether it's on a blog or on LinkedIn. It's irrelevant at that point, right? So when you generate and put out that value in terms of content, in terms of attention, in terms of effort, it really results to this value, whether it's monetary or value in kind. So to give you a very practical example we can all relate to, a couple of months ago, I did a LinkedIn hacks webinar session because a lot of friends were reaching out about it. So I was like, hey, let me do a webinar and, and just sort of address a lot of the community around me in terms of questions about LinkedIn. One attendant recommended me to the Oman American Business Council. So at the time, that didn't occur to me that is the result of doing that initiative as value, but you put out value in the internet and it always finds its way back to you. It is extremely consistent. I think it's a science. I want to talk about a very important distinction when it comes, and I'm really going to refer to this as a distinction. On the internet, social media platforms, they're constantly, through their algorithms, they're constantly training your behavior. And one of the ways to train your behavior is in the type of content you post. Now, I'm going to use this as an example. This is actually a PDF. The screenshot doesn't allow me to elaborate, to highlight that it's a PDF. But on LinkedIn, you could scroll pages within a PDF within LinkedIn. So in order for this PDF to appear in the newsfeed, you have to upload it into LinkedIn. Whenever you upload content natively in any given platform, the algorithm rewards that because that's what they want. They don't want you sharing a link that will take Rebecca outside of LinkedIn and she ends up on Google or on Facebook. They want you to stay in LinkedIn. So the technology and the algorithm consistently rewards native content. And you can see this post in particular was my highest engagement post in my LinkedIn history. And it's only because I used a PDF and not a link taking people to a third-party site. So that's LinkedIn saying, hey, I'll give your content more attention if you upload it within my platform and don't let audiences leave the ecosystem. So this distinction is extremely important. It makes a huge difference in terms of impression, clicks, and engagement, because LinkedIn will reward you for it, because that is good for their business. This is a recent example of a post. And the reason I chose this post is because David here did what I didn't do the day before yesterday. Now you'll see that David appreciates long form content. And this is not Twitter, guys. You could like write an essay and people do read, given that your article is compelling. But what David did right here is he used a reasonable combination of hashtags. It is an extremely intimate and vulnerable post, because we all know the hotel industry is going through challenges. So it has a story, it has an emotion, and we connect to it. But one of the reasons this post really did well is because you also have this image, and this image is native in the platform. Had David shared a link from the Novotel website and that link showed the image here, it would have not done as well as this post did. It's because he actually uploaded an image. So uploading content formats in the platform makes a huge difference. And this is where I went wrong the other day. When I shared this news piece, I used a link. Had I used an image, I would have done way better. But this is a type of long form content that's also very personal, very intimate, and it uses storytelling elements. And these really do well. And I encourage everybody to really go for being intimate and personal. You will be surprised how many more people connect with you because they can relate to you because of your realness, right? People like to connect to real people. So LinkedIn is like this 24/7 networking event, right? It's always happening, it's always on, it never goes off. I wanted to check in with everybody. So far, everything kind of makes sense here. Any in-between questions for the last few slides? Awesome. Now, I want to talk about content mechanics for a second. And this one's really important. This is probably by far the most important formula. And a lot of online influencers have figured this out and have cracked it as a science. Now, most of the time when you're thinking, what am I going to post today? What you're doing is essentially you're overthinking. If If you're in the hotel industry, talk about your industry. So create some content. Come take a photo of someone enjoying or experiencing your product and post that. But creating content is actually extremely stressful because you have to plan ahead for it. You have to really think about it, and eventually you get discouraged. Then you've got curating. Now, curating, and I'm going to show an example of how that looks like. But curating is, I'm in the hotel industry. I'm just going to use hotels as an example for the rest of the session. But I'm the hotel industry, but I'm sharing useful articles about what the industry is doing in this pandemic. Curating content consistently is as effective as creating content. And curating is actually really easy. You just got to aggregate useful content and share, and throw in a caption or two, your 3-4 cents about that topic. This is extremely doable every day, even twice a day. Most of the Instagram influencers that we know today have become experts at documenting. So what does documenting mean, right? Documenting is take the phone, point it at yourself, and just document your life and what's going on with you. And if you happen to be interesting, well, you know, you end up with millions of followers. But this is what makes a lot of influencers successful, because they overcome the self-conscious barrier of documenting. And that's why they are who they are, because overcoming that barrier is extremely hard. In fact, I am still struggling with this particular barrier. Everybody keeps telling me I should do videos, but I feel weird about it. So I'm working on that aspect of myself. But what I do a lot of all of the three. Now, whatever you choose to do more of, the key for any of these to work is consistency. You just have to be consistent so that over time people recognize, right, this is the guy I can rely on when it comes to, I don't know, LinkedIn tips and tricks, right? Case in point, myself or anyone else here with a certain set of expertise. Over time, people begin picking up on that and relying on you for that kind of information. So it's really about consistency, but hey, don't be afraid to, you know, mix it up. Talk about other industries that have nothing to do with you because you're just passionate about the topic. So I always recommend that you do a bit of all three, and documentation or documenting, that one, work your way towards it, because that one is a bit tricky. But all three are important, and the easiest is curating. Curating is so easy, you could do that a couple of times a day. So this is a good example of curating, right? I went to the, which newspaper was this? The Oman Observer. So in any given day when I don't really have interesting content, I just open the newspaper. I share an article I like. I throw in my 2 cents, you know, don't take my money, and whatever opinion I might have on the whole value added tax. And people actually love it. My experience is that the response in sharing classic news actually works, because a lot of people actually don't read the news. So if they can find it on LinkedIn the moment they wake up in the morning, because this is what people do today, they switch on their LinkedIn after they open up their emails, perhaps LinkedIn first, then emails, depends. And then they can rely on you to get the latest news of the day because they happen to follow you. Very convenient. And I've noticed that it attracts a lot of likes. Very few times does it provoke comments, but maybe that's because I don't include a call to action at the end of my posts. So these are little finer details you get to work on over time. Right, I want to talk about hashtags. Now, hashtags are key. You know, hashtags, it was invented by Twitter as a concept. And LinkedIn also adopted hashtags. Now, hashtags are extremely important. Now, if you look at the figure up here, it's like 13,843. I've been monitoring this hashtag for quite some time, and it has not moved much. So people are still catching on the idea of hashtags. So this means that if you use the Oman hashtag regularly, you are consistently getting exposed to this audience. Although there is at least 500,000 LinkedIn users in Oman right now, minimum, right? So not many of them have opted to follow the hashtag. But as awareness on the platform builds up, you will notice people are doing that. But hashtags are also useful to discover content about a certain topic. So you've got, when you look up the hashtag, you'll see a post from Florian. I think Florian is head of HR at Vodafone, and he's talking about his new awesome office. So you'll see that I intended to add 2-3 cents or a comment, right? Now, when you comment on a post, what I need you to really recognize, it's, first of all, you're really making that person's day. So every time Florian gets a comment, it's like getting that dopamine shot, quite literally, because of the feedback loop that social media is designed for. So when you comment, know for a fact, you're making Florian feel really, really good. And trust me, some people go to bed remembering the people who commented or clicked like. Likes is for lazy people. So avoid just liking everything. I think commenting and adding a couple of points and a couple of ideas is very useful, because you're contributing to the conversation. And that helps your engagement with this individual. But it so happens thousands and perhaps millions of other people will see your contribution to this conversation, and that will make them interested in you. One of the reasons I do the digital transformation hitman in 3 words, because when you comment, it shows up in its entirety in a given comment, and that is key. Otherwise, you'll have to click on the profile of that person. I help organizations do 1, 2, 3. So it just cuts off, right? But when I comment, you see all 3 words, digital transformation hitman. It increases the likeliness of people clicking through to come and look at my profile and perhaps decide to connect with me. So commenting and engaging, and I want you guys to try this. For 1 week, don't post anything. Just find your content, find hashtags that matter to you, and just comment in a meaningful way. And then look at your analytics. You'll be amazed that engaging with others is in fact substantially way more effective than actually posting content. Substantially. And the difference is very noticeable. Try it out for a week and then, hit me up and we'll talk about it. Right. I think in the first LinkedIn Hacks session, I didn't really spend a lot of time on this issue. And I want you to look at this tennis ball as a piece of content, right? A piece of content could be a conversation. It could be an idea. It could be a video, what have you. Content is content, right? But content is a 2-way street between 2 people passing it along with one another. It's a conversation. And content and relationships online is a game of community. And community is teamwork. And there is a huge missed opportunity by a lot of people in using teamwork to really enhance their collective presence, especially if you all work for the same organization or the same brand. In fact, a lot of people maybe today in the session are all former employers of mine, old friends. That's community, right? Or former clients, and that's community. And we're always bouncing content against or for one another. And that really, really makes a huge difference, because the audience subliminally really picks up on people who are obviously working together as a collective. And if these people have each other's back this way, I want to work with these people, because these people will have my back. And that could be a client, it could be a future partner, so on and so forth. Many of you have been to meetings with maybe a senior manager or something, and he totally throws you under the bus in that meeting in front of the client. Essentially what happens to the client is oh no, I'm not going to work with these guys, because if these guys can't have each other's back, they won't have my back as a client. And that's something I feel people really pick up on subliminally. So I call this partnership model of people working together, contributing to each other's content and conversations. I call it social media triading. It's a little term I came up with. And when you look at all the three circles, all the 3 points, you've got the content, and you've got audience. The common denominator here is people, right? Because audience are people, they're friends, they're partners, they're colleagues, and there is you, and then you've got also the content. And content is the result of other people also. And this is a relationship, and it's a partnership, and you really need to look after it and nurture it. I think if you have 10 strong partners in any given social media platform, you're in a good place. And I like to say, if you're actively creating content and your friends are not clicking like or sharing, you need new friends. I picked up a new trick over the last 8 months, and I really, I'm sharing it for the first time. In fact, I was debating yesterday whether I should share this one or not. But this one is extremely linked to the idea of partnership. So, and I actually picked this up. It was inspired by Amr Ba'bood of the OITE group. Now, a lot of you might have noticed over the last year that they've been really active on LinkedIn in a very effective way. And one of the things that I really like about OITE is that they've really cracked the partnership aspect. So the chief operating officer is always tagging the CEO on a piece of content and vice versa. And this alone makes you go like, wow, what great teamwork. And people notice that and pick up on that. And they add their content naturally to it. So I think when you tag a colleague or a friend on a piece of content, not only are you increasing the visibility of the original poster of that content, but you're also enhancing the visibility of the actual post. But I took it to another level over the last 8 months. So Salih Tamami here is my brother and business partner. And we internally have agreed that whenever there is content that is important for him to pay attention to, I would tag him and do one of those think emojis. So it's like an internal code. And he knows whenever I do that, he needs to pay attention to that particular piece of content. In our case, it tends to be about financial technologies. But this tactic of tagging Salih and putting emoji on fintech content has converted almost 1,500 new connections to him. Because first of all, people look at him and go like, why is Mohammed Tamami always tagging this guy with this emoji? So they get intrigued about Salih and they get in there and they learn about him and then they connect. But when you do it consistently, day in, day out, people pick up on it and you kind of accumulate that attention. But also what's more important, LinkedIn is a source of intelligence and information about industry. So this is not just about connections and followers and relationships, but also to have access to useful information. So by doing this tagging method, I do this kind of tag at least 5 times a day on average right now. I would tag Salih Tamami in this particular manner using an emoji. And sometimes if you're out of words, just use an emoji, because an emoji just expresses way more than something fancy you're trying so hard to come up with into that conversation. You can just put a laughter emoji, you know, it's fine. And people like it. I want to talk about analytics here. And this is where the money is at, guys, right? Because it doesn't get better than that. This is like having your own personal customer relationship managed. It's like your own CRM, right? But this is the CRM for Rebecca LLC, for David LLC, for, there's this guy here, Tabel, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, for Tabel LLC, right? And this is where you get to see, all right, who's checking me out? So, you know, the post got 6 shares, I got my views, but who is viewing me is equally important. So if you're in sales and marketing and you're, I don't know, trying to sell something to say Bank Muscat, this is a very important measure, right? It just gives you what industries are looking at you. I highlighted IFS because, again, these are partners. I used to work for this organization in an indirect capacity. I'm always engaging with their content, and I thank them for always engaging with my content. So these are the little community pockets that matter. I notice it still says Rotana Hotel Management here. So David, we need to do something about that. This is now Novotel, everybody. And these 9 people, they're as good as family to me, right? And then you've got, often you will find that you have a lot of views from salespeople. Now I know what you're thinking. Salespeople are really, really annoying on LinkedIn. And you're not wrong. But let's think of salespeople a bit differently. The likelihood of a salesperson introducing you to another connection on LinkedIn is higher than anyone else. Because salespeople, that's how they operate. They understand the concept of trading relationships. So I actually love adding salespeople because they happen to also be my audience. But that is also one of the reasons why I always accept a request from a salesperson. Because a salesperson comes with a lot of relationships, and they are not stingy about sharing contacts because they know that's how the game works. So this is a sort of positive spin on getting all these requests from salespeople. Of course, as you work on your content and your profile, you see the quality of individuals viewing your profile increasing over time. So obviously, I'm very happy that I have 78 executive directors on average looking at my profile. That's always good for business decision makers, right? Of course, then you've got the locations. I don't pay too much attention to locations because it can really vary. And sometimes you could be in Oman, but you're listed as London. So this is really not reliable. Location is extremely unreliable. More on analytics here. So if you're familiar with LinkedIn, you know that you get to see who has viewed your profile. Personally, with no discrimination, if I spot anyone has viewed my profile here, I immediately click connect. Because I'm easy like that. If you show a little bit of interest in me, I want to connect. I'm easy. What can I say, you know? But when you look at your views here, you see these little dips. These dips are when I don't share content or I skipped on a couple of days. So it's hard to create audience, but it's even harder to maintain. But I don't beat myself up about it. It's okay. It's, you have a good week, you have a bad week. That's okay. It's just a means. It's not an end, right? LinkedIn. You also have your profile viewers, and it'll give you some 79 interesting views. The 79 interesting views is LinkedIn deciding that these are the kind of people that we think Mohammed thinks is interesting. And they come up with this logic based on content I follow and content I engage with. And then it will also tell me some interesting views that I receive from other organizations, right? So case in point, Gulfar Construction and Engineering. I work for them. So obviously a lot of my colleagues check out my profile. Amantel, I don't know, maybe they want to sell me a nice broadband package for the house, but it's still, you look at it, it's extremely useful intel. And if you can create and connect the dots with other touch points on LinkedIn, then you suddenly have very useful knowledge, right? And just because there is some correlation, it doesn't mean causation. So always kind of keep that in mind, Otherwise, you'll go into a rabbit hole forever and ever. That's it for today, guys. Thank you. And I want to really sort of listen to the audience and take some questions, You guys have all the ideas. Rebecca, to you.
I mean, I have some, first of all, thank you. That was very, not just interesting. I feel like I've learned a lot I didn't know about PDFs being uploaded. I feel like I've wasted the past how many years of my LinkedIn time. And I have a lot of questions actually. So maybe I need to go to a Friday session because we're short on time. But does anyone else want to ask questions before I offer a couple? Oh, okay. So we have a couple questions in the chat asking about a future event. I think some of my personal questions just relate to, are there any things to avoid? You've given us a lot of confidence today to use the platform, and you said the internet has a very short memory like a goldfish, but I've always been taught the opposite, that the internet never forgets anything, and I am slightly afraid of what I put up there. Even if you delete it, it's somehow in there and it could come back and haunt you, you know. And I also worry because I'm very happily employed. If I do too much work on my LinkedIn profile, does it look like I'm job searching in 2020, like half the world right now? Do you have any things we should be avoiding on LinkedIn?
Actually, that's a really good question, right? I think a lot of employers today really need to change how they police social media use within their own organizations. Often you'll find that policies and guidelines within companies are to protect the brand, but it should be one that allows people to use social media to enhance the positioning of the brand. So instead of it being a reactive defensive policy, it needs to be a proactive responsive policy. And this is where I think a lot of companies get this wrong, because they're missing out on a lot of PR mileage that they don't need to really spend money on. And to be active on LinkedIn, I think it's a perception. It really comes down to what kind of content you're sharing. So if you're using your LinkedIn as actively as you're using your Facebook, why can't one say that, oh, she's very active on Facebook? Is she looking for a job? It's just because it's on LinkedIn, the perception lens changed. But I don't think so. I think if you share useful content, people begin appreciating that.
Mr. Mohammed, I have a question.
Yes,
normally, you keep getting a lot of requests for the connection. We should blindly keep on accepting them, or we should be choosy about them?
Good question. And I'm always having this conversation. And I think a lot of people kind of, how do I explain this? I think this is one of those very subjective things where you really need to think about how you want to curate your audience, right? So I'm going to tell you guys a dirty secret, right? You know how I mentioned I don't discriminate. Like if you show a bit of interest in me, I'm going to click connect, right? Because I know that there is a redundant amount of connections I have in my LinkedIn profile, but I rely on them to generate the likes that will enhance my message to reach, for example, you or Rebecca. So I use these mass of connections just to promote a single post so that it can land in the right ear. So this is something very subjective. You need to feel this out over time, but don't go too wild.
I had that same question, so thank you so much for asking and answering. Look, we need to wrap up for those that need to leave. So what I'll do is I'll just talk about a couple of things, and then if it's okay with you, we could stay for a few more questions. It's really up to you.
Yeah, I'm here for as long as it takes.
Okay, cool. Well, let me just say thank you to everyone who does need to leave, and let you know that we have an event a week from yesterday on franchising. So these are US franchise brands that are looking to enter Oman, and we're going to be doing that on Zoom because this is where we're at right now, and that'll be next Monday. And then in November, we are joining up with the other AmChams I mentioned in the region, and Abu Dhabi is hosting us for an election talk with the results of the US election that's coming up and what happens next. And they've got a really great like political expert who's a CNN presenter to speak to us. And there's a lot that's going to happen in the next few weeks. So we would love if our members could join us for those. And thank you again, before everyone leaves, Mohammed, for everything today. It was really very useful.
Rebecca, some people are asking on the Friday session. So Rebecca will share with you guys my email and my calendar. As long as you book me on a Friday between 9 a.m. to 12 midday, I am available consistently every Friday for a one-on-one coaching session. It could take half an hour to 1 hour. I've been doing this since the start of the pandemic, and I will continue doing this.
Thank you. All right, that's it from my side. Are there more questions?
Mohammed, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sakib.
Yeah, please go ahead. Mohammed, I need to know a small thing. What is the difference between the premium and this normal, this thing? What is the benefit we'll get from the premium accounts in LinkedIn Premium?
I think one of the first differences, and I'm going to be quite honest here, because when I land on your account, Gurdas, I go like, yeah, yes, premium. This guy is serious, right? So first impression. Second impression is you also get a suite of tools. Now, one of the most useful tools, and I'm a premium user for LinkedIn. You've got one of their different ties is something called Sales Navigator. It is as good as having a socially driven CRM. I think a lot of companies should not buy CRMs and just rely on Sales Navigator, because it brings LinkedIn's power into a CRM tool. So I could be tracking you. I could be tracking every single career move you make for the next 10 years. So when you move to a new position, you know, like a good salesman, I'm gonna congratulate you and send you a message and say, hey, happy birthday, dude, or something like that. So it's extremely powerful. It gives you more analytics. Obviously, like all platforms, they reward your content through visibility, because that's, again, good for LinkedIn's business. And the Sales Navigator tool is extremely powerful. I really recommend using the trial for around 30 days, the free trial, to get a feel of it, but extremely useful. I once recommended it to a gentleman who wound up buying it for his entire sales team. That's how much benefit they saw from it. So yes, extremely useful.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, actually, I want to ask that if I am contacting an employer and who is sitting in Romania and I don't know him, so what is the more suitable way of sending the message? Because as you know, he's receiving day by day many messages from the people who are applying for the jobs.
All right, can I ask you a few questions, Sakib? So you are initiating dialogue with a potential employer, right?
Yes.
So naturally, you want to enhance your profile and have it look good, right? And I think when you really use LinkedIn the right way, it becomes a major pull effect instead of push. So when you produce valuable content, it pulls people to you, and that is way much easier than push, right? But when you are soliciting them through a private message, and just Gurdas, you get a lot of private message credits in the premium. So it allows you to even email or private message a CEO you never thought that you could even connect to directly, but through LinkedIn you could. So Sakib, you want to really explore how you engage. So I'll give you something I picked up from a dear friend of mine, Victor Antonio. And he has this thing called the 10X model, right? So I'm on LinkedIn. I add you, Sakib. Sakib, I want to sell you this pencil. Now, as soon as I add you, I could send you a message and go like, hey, I got a really good offer on these pencils. They're amazing. They do this, they do that. Great, awesome. Please buy. You know, can you give me your email and I'll send you our PDF and brochure and all that. And you always ignore these messages. They're so annoying, right? But if I added you and I spent 20 days of patience, 20 days of me liking one of your pieces of content, engaging with it, you know, teasing you a little bit, you know, and being really patient about it. After 20 days, you will already feel that I have a rapport with you. So when I send you a private message, hey, Sakib, I was wondering, could we like get on a call? I want to really talk about that job opportunity. Suddenly that person would respond to you because he already feels like he knows you, right? And don't forget, because every time you commented on his stuff and you liked his stuff, you gave him an injection of dopamine, you know? So he associates you with good feelings. So don't underestimate that power. And then when you make your move, oh, extremely receptive. Heck, he'll give you his mobile number, depending on how you approach it. So I'd say take your time. Don't go in for the kill immediately. Wait it out. Let your prey get exhausted through love. Make sense?
Good strategy. Good strategy.
Awesome. I'm all ears, guys. Any questions? I see Tibel, like you're holding back, bro. Like you've got questions, but you're like thinking it really hard. Tell me what's up. What's on your mind?
No, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. What I'm very interested in is actually finding out how to utilize LinkedIn to hire people. We are expanding and we're looking to hire people. And LinkedIn is very new to me and us. And we can see the potential. Your presentation was very eye-opening and got us excited about LinkedIn now. But I sent a message actually in the Zoom group chat. If you can do similar presentation, if Rebecca could organize another one, that would allow companies like ours to learn about how we can utilize LinkedIn for finding talent and hiring talent. I don't know if that's possible.
I'll give you my couple of 2 cents on this. So normally I avoid covering recruitment on LinkedIn as a topic because it's not my thing, but it's worth mentioning. LinkedIn did begin as a recruitment platform back in the days. And then it evolved into the content platform that it is today. So it is an inherent strength for LinkedIn to help in the recruitment process. I also encourage you to contact them and look at some of their recruitment solutions. Extremely useful. And I think from a cost point perspective, way cheaper than Nakuri or some of the other third-party sites that a lot of companies use. Because this one allows you to really look at the person, not just a dry resume.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So you recommend just contacting LinkedIn and seeing what they offer on that site?
Yeah, and
Okay.
just a little bit of Google on recruitment strategies using LinkedIn, and you will find a plethora of articles covering that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions, guys? Safir, I see this young man over there, Safir, smiling. You seem to have a question. You look like a salesperson to me.
Yeah, I am actually one. Hey, everybody's hearing me?
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, I just wanted to know, like, for the description, the job description that you write, like every experience of yours has a place to write your job description as well, right? So it's really necessary to actually have a job description, elaborate job description, or just like the 3 words, like the digital transformation hitman, you know what I mean? So do you really need a elaborate job description to be attractive on LinkedIn?
Really good question, Safir. When you go deeper into your profile, you see like all the places you worked in, and you're talking about the description underneath each. I always recommend, when you look at some of the job descriptions, I do strategic planning. Some people list bullet points. It sounds so dry, right? And almost so generic. It doesn't really tell us much about who you are and what you learned and achieved at that job, right? And that is what you want to sort of pop out to people, right? So, in fact, this is an area of improvement for myself too, to enhance the descriptions underneath that. But I wouldn't do bullet points. I was doing business planning, accounting, geez, man, these are all standard. But what did you learn? What did you achieve is worth highlighting in that description. And I would keep it short. On the internet, people like pretty pictures. So I always recommend also linking the company if they have a LinkedIn page so that their logo sticks out there. And I really get annoyed when I have a company that I can't link its logo to my profile because it just looks weird. It doesn't look pretty.
All right, cool.
You feel like I answered your question there, Safir?
Yeah, yeah. No bullet points. That's the main thing.
And be creative. Don't be afraid to be creative.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Sanjay, 2 cents for your thoughts.
Oh, I had just asked you the question about connecting, whether you should accept it or whether you should not accept all the connections. So I'm listening to you actively. Oh.
Awesome. Thought I'd just check in. I see we have George Jacob on the call and Gary Schumann. I want to check in with you guys if you had any questions. Anuradha and Vineen.
Nothing for me, Mohammed. I've really enjoyed your talk. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for taking the time to listen in. I appreciate that. Awesome. I think, Rebecca, we're good with questions. And Rebecca will share my calendar and my contacts for whenever you want to speak to me on a Friday morning. I'm a nerd that way. And I'll be happy to talk anytime and help you sort of figure this out, you know?
That's
Thank
wonderful.
you, Mohammed.
My pleasure, Mr. Dutia.
Thank you very much. This is one webinar where I've stuck to the end of it and probably be beyond the time. Otherwise, like I'm ready for the next meeting, and it's been busy, but your session was very interesting, and thank you, and thanks Rebecca. Good to see you.
Very good to see
you.
you.
Smile.
I wish we were face to face, everyone, but this has been wonderful. So much benefit for all of us. Thank you again.
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll start a series.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you so much for this very informative session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening, everybody. Thank you.
Have a good
Have a nice evening. Cheers.
All right. Bye.